Well, hello. My name is Alicia, again, your host of the Bombcast Season 2. And today we are talking with Brian Fanzo. He is a speaker and he really focuses on teaching people how to build up their social media as well as doing video inside of social media. And I'm excited to chat with Brian today because he is one of our guests that's outside of the real estate space. So some new perspectives and new ideas. So welcome, Brian.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be on here. I love talking with people that love video as well and love doing different things with video and kind of pushing the envelope. So this should be a lot of fun.
Should. Awesome. Well, why don't you kick us off by telling us a little bit how you ended up doing what you're doing now. I know that you took a little bit of a non-traditional walk into the speaker and social media world, but I'm sure our viewers would love to hear how you ended up doing this.
Yeah, so I definitely have a unique background in the sense of after college, I ended up working in cybersecurity for the Pentagon for about 9 years. Yes, I'm a millennial that worked at one job for 9 years, so I like to debunk all myths that are out there. But my job at the Pentagon in cybersecurity was helping the different branches of the military embrace change. We rolled out a weekly training course, and really it was helping them to collaborate, get policies to share between different branches of the military. I traveled to every military base outside of the United States, so I did a lot of travel. I've actually been to 74 countries total as of today. My goal is 100 by 40. So I have 3 years left to catch up the last 26. But I loved helping people embrace change. I didn't really love the government life or the cybersecurity element as much. I left that world. I became kind of my dream job, which was a technology evangelist at a data center company out of Phoenix, Arizona. And my job was really to help build community, help understand our client and customer needs, as well as empower our employees to tell stories and collaborate. And that's kind of where I fell in love with marketing. I first realized they had a budget where a lot of my other departments I was working with didn't have a budget. So that was part of it. But weirdly for me, I graduated school with a computer science degree, business computer science degree. And I always looked at marketing and this is my own fault, but I always thought of it as like fluffy sales enablement that just really wasn't attractive to me until starting to work in, I would say 2010, 2011, I really started getting more involved in marketing as a whole. And about 5 years ago, I decided to go out on my own. And I launched a little bit of an agency. I decided that wasn't for me. And so for the last 4 years, I host 2 podcasts. I'm a keynote speaker. Last year, I spoke at 48 events. This year, my goal is to speak at 60 events worldwide. And really, I talk kind of wide range of things. I fell in love with video. Weirdly, video wasn't something I was good at. I was always good at talking. My mom says I was talking when I came out of the womb. And for those listening, I know I talk fast, but it's just kind of how I am. And I always loved talking, but video was intimidating to me, especially YouTube, because you had to SEO things and thumbnails and uploading and be consistent, and it's hard to grow a following. And live video was really my gateway to this whole world. There's this tool called Meerkat that came out. If those remember, Meerkat was a little app that came out at South by Southwest 2014. And I happened to jump on that app, and I just fell in love with the raw, real aspect of live video. Fast forward now, 4 years later, I've done over 2,000 live videos myself. And I talk a lot about on the importance of video, how we shrink the distance online. And now I get to talk on stage about how do you become more human online? How do we connect and build strong relationships? And ultimately, I don't care about the technology as much as I care about people really doing some amazing things with what we have out there now. So definitely a different path than what most would say to get here. But I found my true calling, which is speaking and podcasting. And this is what I get to do every day. So I'm very lucky to have caught this wave when I did.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the amount of travel that you've done in itself is an exciting point of view to get to do this and travel and talk to people about this thing that you're passionate about. I love how much your methodology, your ideas align so well with what we do here. I actually I wrote down a quote when I was doing my research on you because it's what I teach on a constant basis to people. And the quote was, social media won't replace a handshake, but social media done right will change the first meeting from a handshake to a hug, which
that's my mantra. That's everything. I love that. That's our alignment for sure.
It is, because where we're constantly encouraging our customers to use the video to humanize their communication, whether it's email and text, that's where most of our customers are using it. It's because those of us that are here and do that, and our customers that do it, experience this on a regular basis. It changes their first interaction with someone into they've already started to build the connection. It happens to me all the time. I'm going to an event. I've sent them a video to introduce myself. I show up, and, oh, Alicia, and they will come and give you a hug because they feel like they already know you.
Yes. And that's part of it too. I think for me growing up, my dad made me learn golf, and he's like, son, you have to learn golf. Business is done on the golf course. And then I finally got on the golf course and nobody talked business. I was like, wait a second, people are human. You get to know somebody, you look them in their eyes, you understand if they have kids, you understand what their pain points are. And I think video, I love video shrinks that distance, right? And it enables that connection. It's also, I believe every business is in the business of trust. And if you're in the business of trust today, the only way to build trust at scale is video, right? Look at someone in their eyeballs. It's really hard to fake it, to sell unicorns and rainbows when you're on video, right? And that's why video can be intimidating for some people. But weirdly enough, for people that I get to work with, I'm sure it's the same with you, is that once you get over the hump, like nobody likes video to begin with. No one's comfortable on video, when you start out. But once you start seeing the benefits and you realize that people are okay if you make a mistake or you say because that's like us, right? Like that's who we are. And so I truly do believe, I've always said, I think the power of social media, but then video kind of took it to a whole new level. And I always use Mark Zuckerberg as the perfect example. I mean, Mark has always been a big believer in the power of social, not the media or he wants the community, right? We can change the world. And he went all in with live video because he said live video is the closest way we can get to human interaction online, right? There's nowhere else that we can shrink the distance, look you in the eye, have a conversation. And I think that's where, how do we take these conversations and treat them like the golf course or the salon and really build rapport? You have to have the nonverbal cues. You have to have the thing because, I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of fake news. There's a lot of automation. There's a lot of people that just assume you're copying and pasting things. Yeah. When you're doing a personalized video or you're taking just a little bit of time, it's amazing how much more that stands out, how farther that goes. And I think video is the great equalizer when it comes to that.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I'm curious how you, while you're teaching people, how you combat the idea of wanting to be more produced, because I know we come across that at BombBomb all the time with people that are wanting, they want a green screen, they want filters. You would not believe how many people ask me if we're going to put Snapchat filters on or Instagram filters on our platform so that they can filter their face. So how do you encourage people to combat that desire to be a marketing product instead of a human being?
Well, I think this is that weird space where, even to the golf course, right? At the golf course, we're probably our most least professional part of our entire time when you're having a sales conversation. And yet that's when the most magic happens, right? And I think this is where when you're looking at production, like I've always said, there's value in produce and there's value in doing it kind of, I would say live or, ad hoc. But for me, one of the biggest things is, if you're trying to be something you're not or trying hard to be professional, there are so many roadblocks for you to actually create video that ultimately you never do. Yeah. And this is a tagline of mine as well. Like anyone that works with me, these are my two staples, is that perfection is a fairy tale and control is an illusion. You can't control what happens around you or what the video is. And then the other part of this is when someone tells me they want it to be professional, they want it to be at this level, I ask them what videos they consume. Are the videos you consuming, are they professional? Are they well done? And then I take it a step further and I ask them, are you creating video for yourself or are you creating it for others? Like what would, I think this is oftentimes we think of it as a lens. And the other part is I really separate what you see on TV and what we see online, right? These are two different mediums. We shouldn't be measuring ourselves against a on-screen, like I'm a podcast host, but I'm not measuring myself against a SportsCenter anchor or someone that is a professional on the TV. And I think that's another piece of the puzzles you have to wrap your mind around. I don't need to be polished and produced like that, like TV because I'm not on that same medium. And then the last one is, I think relatability comes through when we are our truest self. And I think that's where, like, as soon as you add a green screen, as soon as you add a filter, you're now already conveying to them your lack of confidence. And how are you building trust with someone when you have to have all of these, mirages around you when it's a simple, conversation? Now, there's plenty of times where a produced video with perfect lighting is great, but I would always argue, as long as your audio is good, most people do not care if they're, if you haven't done your makeup or your hair's. And I'm saying that from a guy that wears a hat. So, like, I understand that might be a little bit like condescending coming from me, but I think that's part of the thing where we're moving forward. That when I say this every stage I get on. Does anyone know of a brand or a person that is perfect? And the answer is no. I mean, sometimes someone says Mother Teresa. A couple of weeks ago, someone said Ryan Reynolds. I disagree. I don't know about Ryan Reynolds, but
debatable, actually.
Yeah. But if we realize nobody is perfect, then us trying to put on the portray that we are perfect or a perfect environment or like that true professional environment, we're already losing trust by trying to convey something that we know doesn't exist. And so that's really where I try to take it. I love using examples of other leaders and other executives that are doing it really well. Like, one of my favorites is John Legere, the CEO of T-Mobile. Mm-hmm. If you guys haven't seen him, he's amazing on video. He runs through Times Square or runs through Central Park on live video. He does a cooking show from his kitchen on Sundays on Facebook. This is the CEO of T-Mobile. He'll have dirty dishes in the sink. But I tell you what, for me, I was like, well, not only is he real and raw, but I don't even know if the CEO of AT&T is a male or female, but I know everything about this person. I know he's real. I know he's down to earth. I know he understands my pain points. So I think that's part of it. I also think, part of it is understanding, like, when you're in your most comfortable environment, you tell the best stories. You're engaged the most. And I think that's also something that, as soon as you add layers, as soon as it has to be polished, it's amazing how quickly we go into turn into robots and how quickly we come into broadcasting our message. And the truth is, nobody wants to be sold to. Nobody wants to be marketed to. And you have to figure out how to have a conversation. And conversations are easiest when we are at our most comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. I pulled out the millennial thing, which I jotted notes down about it, and you mentioned it, because I feel like millennials get a bad rap, right? I'm a millennial or a zennial, depending on what breakdown you use, as you are as well. But I feel like the reason why we have Facebook and Instagram and Twitter is because the people from our generation wanted an opportunity to be more authentic and to communicate more authentically. So I love how you own the millennial, I'm a millennial keynote, millennial mindset. But do you feel like that is something that's very generational, our desire to be more authentic, whereas maybe the generation before us, they've been more programmed for the less authenticity? Do you think that they have a harder time just kind of going raw and being authentic just because they grew up in a different era?
So I think it's interesting. I love the way you kind of set that stage. I think I would argue every generation ever would have killed to have social media, right? The ability to share your message with the world. I mean, the movements that we see have happened over the last 10 years that have all been generated. I mean, and we had baby boomers and Gen Xers that wanted to have movements, but were siloed by where they lived or what their resume was or their background. And for us, we haven't had that as a vehicle. But weirdly enough, I think when you look at it, I think where we have gone. So for the last 9 years or so, social media for a while was about filters and broadcasting, and we added the word marketing on it, which really ruined it for most of us. And it was about blasting messages. And then we're coming full circle, and we've always heard that people buy from people they like. And that was the same in the baby boom generation. It was the same in the Gen Xer generation. Same in people buy from people they like. And I also would argue in today's generation, people buy from people that they can relate to, people that look like them, that see like them. And we just have more opportunities. And so weirdly enough for me, when I'm working with Gen Xers or baby boomers, when I get them to stop looking at the camera and start talking to a person, it's easy. Sometimes they might even actually be better at it because, let's face it, there's the younger generation, since we've always been there and we're so inundated on it. We sometimes try to model ourselves after like our favorite Gary Vaynerchuk or one of our celebrities. And so we sometimes tweak a little bit where I think for older generations, I think part of it, and sometimes it starts where I just put on the camera and have them have a conversation with me and not even look at the camera, right? I think the one of the best tips that I've got from a really good friend of mine, Amy Landino, she's a big YouTuber, but she always has preached that, you're not talking to a camera, you're talking to a person behind the camera. And when you're starting and video gets scary, have a person stand there and talk to them, because you would be amazed how different it goes from how you kind of convey your message. So I think part of that is a little bit of a generation thing. It's the selfie video Instagram stories. That's definitely like something that we're just used to it. Like we have no shame. I mean, I am the worst. Like I have no shame. I will Instagram stories everywhere and anywhere I go. That's a little bit different, but I think once you break it down, like my dad's a candy salesman. He's a baby boomer, and he's the reason that quote came out. So he texted me and he's like, and this was 2014. He's like, son, I love what you're doing, but I need you to remember what you're doing. Social media will never replace the power of a handshake. And he's a salesman. He owned a large peanut brittle company that they recently sold. And I remember replying, I was like, Dad, you're right. Nothing I'm doing is replacing a handshake. But when I do it really well, I get more handshakes and turn handshakes into hugs. And I think every generation prior to us understands the value of human interaction, trust. And so I think we're at this weird spot now where the more human you can be online, the better you are. And let's face it, a lot of the younger generation are very good at catfishing and very good at faking it. So I think we're in an interesting spot. I think 2019 is fun because I think good people who have a good message that are willing to share their story are going to be able to leverage video in ways they've never have before. And there's no roadblocks about production value. I mean, everyone has a smartphone now, even if you're an older generation. So I think that's, and my mantra is press the damn button, right? And like that's the book I'm writing, which comes out in a couple of months. Everything's about press the damn button, because for so many people, we'll make excuses. We come up with every reason in the world. And it's not even just excuse of what we look like. Excuses like, well, I don't know if they'll ever read it. And it's amazing for me. Video in today's day and world is once you do it, once you press the button, once you start sharing, the rapport, the results are mind-blowing. Like it ends up being contagious to the point where you're like, why was I not doing video this whole time? But until you press the button, I can promise you'll come up with 100 excuses to do it next year or the following year after that.
I started laughing while you were talking because Alexa just was interviewing me for our Bombcast preview, and she asked what my number one video tip was, and I said, stop creating obstacles to keep yourself from doing videos, because exactly what you said, you can come up with 100 reasons over and over again why you can't do a video, but until you actually press the button, like you just said, you're never going to see what a change it can make. You're never going to get over your fear of it. You're never going to think, or you're never going to realize that people don't care about all the things that you think they care about.
Right.
You might think that you care about the fact that one of your eyes is smaller than the others. One of my eyes is smaller than the others. I say that all the time to people because I'm like, I know that you didn't notice that. I'm the only person that notices that. And you will continue to have those obstacles until you just do it. So I love that. Social media, I feel like, is a Rubik's Cube for a lot of the average consumer. Or, we work a lot with real estate agents and mortgage professionals, and they never got into their field because they wanted to do social media. But then, they run their own business. They wear all these hats. So how is your average sales professional supposed to keep up with the landscape? Because it changes constantly. What would you recommend that they do to make sure that they're staying up on the social media trends?
So this is an interesting one. I think, I host, my podcast is called FOMO Fans, which stands for the fear of missing out. And I love bleeding edge technology. I love change. But I think sometimes we get caught up in that world, right? We get caught up of all of the changes. And so I always say, the goal should be always listening to where your customers are going tomorrow, while marketing and selling to them where they are today, right? That's a big piece of me. I think sometimes we jump on a shiny object too soon. Yes, there's early adopters, but those are people that, kind of kick the tires. But I think, especially real estate or any business, I've always said any business that is about word of mouth and that is about building rapport on existing customers and using your current customer base is your sales team, right? I mean, we especially in real estate, I work in the travel space a lot. Travel agents, everything is about that human connection and going above, personalized. Social media today is made for you. It is bread and butter. That's what it's all about. But you have to stop thinking of it as a marketing channel and thinking about how you can be social on it. And so that's one of the ways that I think the other piece of it is, understand where you're most comfortable and then figure out where your clients are. And you don't have to be using all of the features or doing all of the things, but be willing to test things out. Like I can tell you one of the things that I think scares a lot of people is that when they don't see something, they don't know when to press the button, right? Like that's something that scares them. But I will argue most people don't. And one of the things that I've learned really well with social media is I try a bunch of things and I lean into what works. I just lean into what works. I try a call to action in the comments. I try to call to action in the description. I try to call to action on the video. And then I look back at and say, which one of these worked the most? Okay, this worked the most. I'm going to try to do that. So I think that's kind of important. The other one is, when you're looking at kind of staying on top of trends, try to understand also where there's a trend of, I want to know what the latest and greatest is, but I also want to know what people are using it for business. I have zero need for using social media just for social media. I don't care about vanity metrics or views. You'll never hear me, when it comes to video creation. That's not my goal. It's okay, how can I solve a problem? What does success look like? What's the problem I can solve? Okay, this is video, I can do that. And so I think that's another piece for social media. I think sometimes we get overwhelmed by all of the features or all the functionality. But if you remember the reason you're on the platform and the reason that people are following you, you don't get as overwhelmed because you're like, well, I'm staying in my lane. I'm gonna hang out. And and the other piece is I listen to a lot of podcasts. I create a lot of video, but I don't watch much video because I learn best via audio. And so there's some great podcasts that are out there that'll keep you up to date. I mean, the whole point of my show was I used to want to convince people to be the early adopters and have FOMO with me. And then I realized not everyone likes that. Not everyone likes the bleeding edge. Not everyone likes the crazy change. I mean, I got beta OS running on my iPhone. I'm a beta tester for Facebook and for Twitter. And so stuff is breaking all over the place. And so I created that podcast simply with the idea that said, you don't have to follow me anywhere else. You don't have to read everything. Once a week, I'm going to update you kind of on one topic or one trend to kind of keep people moving along. But I think the world we're living in now, it's less about the platforms and more about, hey, I'm gonna get my message out there. The platform can keep changing. I'll adapt, but as long as you have your message down and have that vision down of what your strategy is, the platforms will change and you'll just kind of ride along with them.
Is there anything that in 2019 that you think is going to surprise us as far as social media trends or with video?
So I think, every year since 2014, it's been the year of video, right? Every year.
Yes.
So 2019 will continue that trend. Will be the year of video again. The stat I cited on every show, the Cisco Index report came out and said 81% of all internet traffic by 2020, which is next year, will be video. 81% of all internet traffic will be video. Wow. So video is coming, right? It's here. Yeah. The interesting part about, I love live video. I'm sure everyone listening to this has watched a Facebook Live video. And I always say this, the reason Facebook Live is amazing is because anyone can go live. The reason most Facebook Lives are horrible to watch is because anyone can go live, right? I think in 2019, we're going to see a shift where we're not using video for video's sake as much, but we understand it as an extremely important value proposition. But I also think we're going to start to see a little bit more, not only personalized video, but my prediction around video has been, we're going to see an episodic trend. So the reason this is something we hear a lot is that the average consumer has the attention span of a goldfish, right? Eight seconds is all. Well, I think that's crap. That's completely wrong because today's consumer just does not have time for crappy content. I mean, we will binge watch Game of Thrones for an hour. My favorite podcast is Armchair Expert. It's an hour and a half long. I listen to it every week. If the content is good, if it's dialed in, it's valuable, it's personable, we will watch it. It's just we've been blasting out so much bad content for so long that we have this weird world now where we are ejecting very early. So one of the things I think that we're going to see a trend on is we're going to see people come out and say, kind of like this podcast, right? There's season 1 and season 2. You know that when you tune in, there's a finite beginning and a finite end. So
Yeah.
a lot of the strategies I'm working with my clients is we're doing series like, hey, this is a 5-part video series that we're launching. Hey, this is because today's consumer looks at that and says, okay, I don't have to tune in every week. Hey, I'm not overwhelmed. We know, oh, okay, there's 5 parts of it. If I like the first part, I'll stick around for the rest. And I think that's probably the trends that I'm excited about. I'm also kind of pushing that trend.
Yeah.
And I think the other one we're going to see from like a video perspective is we're really going to see this like kind of migration into understanding when produced video really matters and then where the rest of it just needs to be video, right? Like, and I think we've have like kind of both. I'm not an all or nothing guy. Like I worked in cybersecurity, and that's all cybersecurity is like you change the password to 30 characters because the 6th one didn't work, and then nothing works, right? Like I'm not a big believer in that. But I think we're going to see a lot more people, like I always say that my number one tip when it comes to video on what to create, right? Because I inspire you to do video. Now you're like, what do I even talk about? I always say, give people access to something they can't get anywhere else. The word access is the key. I believe on video or live video, people they want behind the scenes. They want to see how the sausage is made. And even when it comes to replying to video, like on Twitter, I reply with video replies on a regular basis, right? Like the idea to me is, if everyone is doing one thing, how do I stand out, right? And if you're in sales and marketing right now, I can guarantee you every email looks the same in your email box. But when someone opens it and it's a video in there versus text, who are they remembering, right? Like now getting them to click on it, that's your own like piece of it. So I'm a big believer in when we see video kind of taking off, like LinkedIn video is powerful right now. The reason LinkedIn video is powerful is less than 1% of all LinkedIn users are using it, right? Like there's an element of this kind of trend. So I'm excited to see that part. I love really dialed in personalized video. Like I don't care about millions of views. I mean, and this is another like kind of like a soapbox for me is that, if anyone would tell you that you would tell your story, you would share your thoughts and 300 people would watch it, everyone would jump at that every day of the year until the last 5 years. And all of a sudden, the last 5 years, like, well, I'm not going to do video because there's only going to be like 300 people see it. And I'm like, well, that email you send or that text message you send or the 4 people you run into at the local Walmart, that's 4 people, right? Like you have the ability. I think this is one, like we have to evaluate what we consider good video, like from the results perspective, because I think it's less about the masses and it's more about getting the right video in front of the right person at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah. We use the phrase go deep instead of wide around here all the time. What's your opinion on what the ratio of your more curated content, like the episodic, the 5, we're going to do 5 videos versus the more off the cuff, human in the moment video? What should be a healthy balance on your social media with that kind of video?
So I think, I put this as creation versus documentation, right? It's like the documentation is the ad hoc. The creation goes into a calendar. And so one of the things I definitely preach is, to stand out in noise right now, it's not about, hey, I need someone to follow me or notifications. You need to be consistent. So if you're trying to create a piece of content, be consistent on whatever it is. If you can only get it out monthly, get it out monthly. If you can get it out weekly, get it out weekly. If you can get it out every Tuesday of the week, even better, right? The more that you can be consistent, the better. And so I always tell people, do as much creation of content that you have the bandwidth for, that you can be consistent with, right? That you can manage those expectations out of the gate. I host 2 podcasts a week and I do 2 internal video series a week for 2 of my clients. That's my only like quote unquote creation of content every single week. But the other piece of it is, this is something that where we're moving towards is the other element here is you have to be ready and willing to press the button when something happens. And you have to, like, I travel around with a table tripod that costs like $8 on Amazon, and I have it in my book bag. And if something happens, I pull it out, put it in the tripod, press the button, right? Like I'm very aware of that. And I'm also kind of okay with kind of just capturing something in the moment. And I think this is part of the limitation for a lot of people is you just have to be open to the idea, because reacting in real time, anyone can do. Anyone can act in real time, reply to a tweet, jump on a trending message. But if you're able to know your customer and monitor things in real time and then react at the right time, game over, game changer. And I think that's this delicate balance where, like, my podcast, people know when it's going live and very, meticulous on that side of it. But they also know that if I stumble across something that I think is valuable for them, I'm going to press the button and capture it on my Instagram stories or wherever it might be. And so I think that's more of it. It's not, it's not about how long your videos are or how many videos in a week, but you just have to commit to yourself. And I'm talking commit like 6 weeks of commit or 6 months worth of commit, because that creation process, first of all, just because you create something doesn't mean people are going to care about it. I mean, everyone that's created a viral video that nobody saw, viral video, this is that weird part also when it comes to content. What is great is determined by your audience, not by you, the creator. You create the content, you put it out there, your audience determines what is great. And so now what you have to figure out is you have to be willing to put a lot of stuff out there, and then whatever they determine as great, it moves, right? A viral video goes viral because so many people resonated with it and they thought it was worthy of sharing. And I think that's a balance as well. And I think this also includes, I have a lot of people that I work with that are very scared of video. And one of the things I tell them all the time is like, I don't need you to go video on social. I know we both do, right? Like, we live in that world. What I recommend them to do is they need to FaceTime with their family 3 times a week. They need to get on video FaceTime and FaceTime with their family. They need to be used to seeing their picture up there, up their nose hairs, too close, too loud, your hand over the microphone. Just do FaceTime with your family for a couple of days or a couple of weeks and kind of get used to that structure, because then you're going to get like, oh, well, that was really cool. I got to see the smile of my grandchild instead of hearing, differently, or I got to see the reaction, and like little things like that really get people moving on video. And then once you start doing it, you're going to get into a format that makes the most sense to you, right? Like, and if you like 5-minute videos and you're really good at creating those, jump on those. If, even doing things like, video replies on a regular basis, like, you'll be amazed. To me, a video reply from someone's office has less of a chance being open than a video reply of someone walking to the airport replying back to me, right? Because I'm like, ooh, they jumped on that and they had something valuable to say. When I see someone that's doing a produced reply to me on anything, I'm like, oh, well, they're strategic. They're going to sell me something. Like, Lord knows what they planned this all out. So I think that's part of the balance as well, is like, you would be amazed. Some of my worst, quote unquote, worst videos that had the least professional side. I had one where my audio boom fell down on top of me when I was doing something for IBM. One of the best videos that were out there for engagement, best videos for click-through, best videos for sales, because people are like, oh, I'm going to hang in. This person's real. This person's connected. And so I think that's where we have to move this needle. And it's less about being overwhelmed and more about just kind of coming up with a plan.
Yeah, I love that. We see that both in our own marketing. The videos that we shoot of someone walking while they're talking or moving somewhere have so much higher engagement than when we do a professional setup like this. Our customers tell us the same thing on a regular basis. That off the cuff video that they just pulled out their phone and did in the moment because they didn't want to ignore the person, but they didn't have time to call them, have incredible results, because it's in the moment, and people recognize like, oh, this person is doing something, different, or they're making me a priority, and it works.
For sure. And especially marketing today. I mean, if you think about it, the consumer's smart and the consumer has the power today. And we know that we're getting retargeted. We know that, commercials have, celebrities that are paid to endorse cars that they'll never drive. We know that, people are asking for our email address at checkout, not because they want to send us a receipt, because they want to add us to their newsletter. The consumer is so smart. So now it becomes, well, how do I outsmart them? How you do that is you be real. Like, it's amazing how cool it is that the way you outsmart is that you do what was the easiest thing to begin with, and that's engage at a real level. And it's a chapter of my book, but I think the future of marketing is relatability. And the more relatable you are, the more you're going to connect with somebody, the easier your sell is going to be, the easier someone's going to listen to your pitch, the reason someone's probably going to come to you and ask you what you're selling. And I think that's a complete shift, because for the last 8 or 9 years online, we assumed marketing was so much about automation and hey, if we have a 3% open rate and we just keep blasting them every day, maybe that'll help us. Or, I think we're moving to this space now where it says, hey, what's the most relatable content we can create? How can we build trust with that relatable content? And then how do we keep doing that for our customers? And I think that's where the magic is.
I agree with you completely. I believe that's where the magic is. 100%. One of our taglines here, or the things that we use, is to humanize your communication. It's not about having better marketing. It's not about because video is cool tech. It's about actually being more human in a space where people are wanting that kind of human contact. And I believe that the people that I work with, our customers, their value comes from being a human being.
Yes.
Their value to their customers is not that they're able to enter numbers into a computer. The value that a sales professional has is who they are. So you are dead on. That is exactly where all the magic happens, is in that authentic space.
Yeah. It's also fun too, because you think about it, if someone comes down and there's two products, and one product, the person, you trust the person, you've seen the person and they're real, and one, you have no idea who's behind it, 100 out of 100 decisions are going to go that one direction. And so why would you not want that to be the case in your business?
Absolutely. So what advice would you give to someone who has been kind of sitting back on social media for a while, and the hesitation to jump in, and they finally decided, okay, 2019 is my year. I'm gonna build up my social following. I'm gonna get more followers, or I'm gonna use video to engage people. What advice would you give them, to someone that's just really deciding to jump in right now?
So it's pretty simple. I say, show you care. And that's the simplest way I can say it is, people follow people that care about others, that care about people. No one will ever say, oh my goodness, you care too much, you share too much value, you help out too many people, right? And so if you're going to jump into social media, I think first off, you have to tell your story. I am a big believer. It's part of my book. It's the whole piece, is that I believe you are doing a disservice to the world by not putting your story out there. If we can all agree the world needs to be more empathetic, now it's our job to put ourselves out there, because we can't have empathy for someone that we don't understand their story, who they are about. And so I think, and the other piece of this is, I think the follower numbers are one of those things where the more value you create, the more that you focus on your 30 or your 300 followers you have right now, the more you just crush it with them, the more they're going to turn into your fans. They're going to tell their friends. And it's a lot less about, hijacking a hashtag or jumping on at the perfect time or having the perfect photo. And it's a lot more about, if I crush it for my existing followers, if I give them so many things, you'd be amazed how much that works. And to grow a following, oftentimes in social, I tell people this all the time, you have to listen more than you post. You have to be willing to go and consume other people's content. I listen to 12 podcasts a week, and part of it's for learning, but part of it's for me to understand what works, what doesn't work. I want to learn new interviewing techniques. I want to learn how people are doing certain things. And I think on social media, that's a big piece. And my tagline is, I like to say, you don't want to focus on building a following on a social network. You want to build a community that will follow you anywhere you go. Ooh. And so by doing that, you invest in them, right? Like, celebrate good things. If someone's doing something good, like I love, it's the old school follow Friday, but it's the idea of, like, let's say you're going all in on Instagram, like, why not do a video interview of one of your friends that has a local business, right? If you're in real estate, this is my soapbox. If you're in real estate, interview local businesses and ask them to tell their story. Guess what they do when you give them that file? They share it to their community. And now you're exposed to a whole brand new community. They're happy. And the people that are watching are like, wow, that guy or girl invests in the local community. I want to have them represent me. They understand what's going on. And so I think that's a piece of it. And then the other one is, like, it is a consistency long-term play, right? Like, there is, as much as I would love to say, like, there's a fix and there's a way to do it, like, building a community takes time. It takes listening. It takes giving. It takes putting yourself out there. I'm very vulnerable and share a lot of things, but the more vulnerable you are, the more people will connect with you as well. So I think that is a piece of it. And my last one on that, when you're picking a social network, pick where you're most comfortable first. The second network you decide to be on, pick where you think your clients or customers are. I think most people get it backwards, and they're like, oh, I need to go on this platform because that's where my customers are. Well, guess what? You're not most comfortable there. It's going to come across. You're going to hate doing it, and you're going to get burnt out. if you start where you're most comfortable and kind of get into the flow, all of a sudden you're like, oh, this isn't too bad. Then you can kind of move to where your customers are. If you skip that step, I'm amazed how many people try so hard in an area that they haven't got used to telling their story yet. But social media is not a passing fad. It's not going anywhere. Don't listen to any of that, even the Facebook haters. I mean, everyone's on Facebook. So when people are talking about Facebook, it's like, they're hating the big Goliath. But I really do. I believe social media can change the world. You have to be willing to put yourself out there. You have to be willing to listen. And then the last thing I'll say is you control your feed. Anyone that comes to you and says, well, I don't really like social media because there's so much hate and nastiness on my channels. Who are you following? And unfollow those people, right? You determine who's in your feed, like on every channel. Like there's no one else that's like, oh, I'm going to put this in there, right? Like, and I think that's something that I don't know if we've forgotten it, but I mean, I've probably replied in the last 2 weeks to multiple friends that have reached out to me and they're like, well, I don't really like Twitter because of all the nonsense and links that are reposting. I'm like, well, unfollow everyone who does that, and you're going to have a nice curated list of people that you enjoy engaging with. So don't forget that, like, if social media is overwhelming or you're not enjoying the experience, you have the power to unfollow, mute, and decide what is in your feed. And that's when people start to see, like, oh yeah, I do control this. This is what I want to do. And that's where I think you can get the ball rolling.
Awesome. I love it. Those are really great tips. I think everyone can really benefit from that because, again, so many of our community of people are not, we have some real heavy social media people that are killing it, but our average client, the average person in the BombBomb community gets a little bit lost as to what they should be doing in social. So that's really great tips. I am so glad that we had a chance to talk today. I feel like from the speaker side, I have like a million questions for you that I could keep going, but that's not for our customers. That's just my own curiosity. But just real quick, I just want to highlight some of the things that you said for our customers that I think they would really latch onto. And that first one was give them access to something that they can't get anywhere else. And then the second thing that I really loved that you said that I think is a huge takeaway is to show that you care, right? Build a community. Don't try and just build followers and have lots of people. Build a community of people that follow you and they'll follow you anywhere. So thank you so much for your time today, Brian. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on. We really appreciate your time.
Oh, my pleasure. I enjoy it. I love being on here, and I love when brands are doing good things like this to educate the masses and kind of grow the needle. Like I said, the more of us that are putting our story out there that are doing good things, we drown out the bad, and the more people that we can inspire to do this, the better it is. So thanks for having me on.